Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Giridhari Radhe Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jai Jagannath Jai Baladeva Jai Subhadra Jai Jagannath Jai Baladeva Jai Subhadra Jaya Bal Gopal Jaya Bal Gopal Jaya Bal Gopal Jaya Bal Gopal Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev श्री श्री राधा गिरिधारी भगवान की जय श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय श्री गौरनिताय की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय गुरुदेव की जय So as usual, we'll start first with reading a little passage from Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita, and then we'll continue with the Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we were in chapter 33, a lot of ground to be covered. Okay. When Prabhupada rose early the next morning, the temperature was near freezing. His tent had no heat. He walked to the pandal to lead the kirtana at Mangala Aarti, and as he sat on his Vyasasan, a disciple handed him his quilt, which he wrapped around himself. To rise and bathe in such cold was difficult for most of the devotees. A few went to the Ganges, others bathed at a nearby pump, and some refused to get up at all. Giriraj. The program was very rigorous because it was bitterly cold at night and we were expected to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and bathe and attend Mangalarti. So a few staunch devotees like Tamal Krishna and Hamsaduta got up early by 3 or 3:30 and walked all the way from our camp to the Ganges to take an early morning bath. But those of us staying in the Brahmachari tent were not so staunch, and generally when it was time to get up at 4 o'clock it was out that so cold out that we preferred to remain in our sleeping bags. Srila Prabhupada also started to notice that some of us were coming late to Mangala Aarti and that some of us were not coming at all. Prabhupada became very upset about this because he knew how important Mangala Aarti was for us. So one morning, although he was a little frail in health, he got up at 4 o'clock and came out in his gamcha, sat down under the pump and took that ice cold bath early in the morning, just to encourage us to get up, bathe and come to Mangala Aarti. That had a very profound effect on all of us, and we felt so ashamed that we just couldn't sleep late anymore. After Kirtana, Prabhupada lectured on Srimad Bhagavatam, resuming the story of Ajamila. This particular story, with its glorification of the Lord's holy name, seemed especially relevant. The holy name was so powerful that by chanting only once, Ajamila had been saved. Chanting, therefore, was far more beneficial than the prana coming down from the constellations. So I will stop there. Chant our invocation prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana-sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे नमो ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिविश्रममाधवस्वामिनिति नामिने गुरुं गौरं गिरिश्रेष्ठं यो विश्रम्भेन सेवते माधवं तुलसी रामकृष्ण कीर्तिकरं स्तुवे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणम्. So as usual, we will take a few seconds to glorify Srila Prabhupada, thanking Srila Prabhupada for his greatest contributions, which are his books. Without his books, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and many, many more, without these books, we wouldn't be able to understand any of this divine knowledge. So thank you to Srila Prabhupada. I also take this opportunity to thank the organizers of this morning Bhagavatam class. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. I acknowledge that I have no real qualifications to speak on such exalted topics, but I take it as an opportunity to purify myself. And just on another note, I had the good fortune of listening to some other exalted devotees give classes on the same verse, and it was very enlightening. Gave me a lot of clarity on the verse and its purport. So I'd like to thank them also from my heart. And also thank you, dear devotees, for attending this morning's program, this morning's class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, and for giving me a patient ear. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत् नष्टप्रायेष्व भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिके शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयन्थस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Today's verses from Canto 5, Chapter 13, verse 11. Vachitshita tapavata varsha pratikriyam kartum anesha aste kvachinmitho vipananyacha kinchid vidvesham richati utavitta shathyat. Kvachitcha shita tapavata varsha pratikriyam kartum anesha aste क्वचिन्मिथो विपणन्यच्च किञ्चित् विद्वेषं ऋच्छति उत वित्त शाठ्यात् क्वचिच्च शीता तपवातवर्षा प्रतिक्रियां कर्तुम् अनेश आस्ते क्वचिन्मिथो विपणन्यच्च किञ्चित् विद्वेषं ऋच्छति उत वित्त शाठ्यात्. Would any other devotees like to chant this verse, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanavad Pranam. I am also trying to chant this.
Thank you.
Kochicha shitatopabato varsho pratikriyam kartum anisho aste kochin mitho vipanam yaccha kinchit vittesham richati uta vitta shattat. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you, Mataji.
क्वचिच्च शीतातपवातो वर्षो प्रतिक्रियां कर्तुमनीशो आस्ते क्वचिन्मिथो विपणं यच्च किञ्चित् বিদ্বেষম ঋচ্যত্যুত বিত্ত সাক্ষাৎ। হরে কৃষ্ণ।
Hare Krishna. Would anyone else like to try, or shall we continue with the synonyms? Okay, so we'll go with the synonyms. Would anyone like to read the synonyms, please?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I will go for that.
Thank you, Mataji.
Kochit, sometimes, cho also. Shito atopo bato varsho, of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, and excessive rainfall. Pratikriyam, counteraction. Kortum, to do. Anisho, being unable. Aste, remain in misery. Kochit, sometimes. Mitho, one another. Biponon, selling. Yatcho, whatever. Kinchit, a little bit. Vidvesham, mutual enmity. Richati, obtain. Uta, it is so that. Vitto Shatchat, because of cheating one another merely for money. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Is there anyone to read the translation?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
please, Prabhu, continue.
Sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone for the purport? It's a very short purport.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am doing.
Thank you, Prabhu.
This is an example of the struggle for existence, the attempt to counteract the onslaught of material nature. This creates enmity in society, and consequently, society is filled with envious people. One person is envious of another, and this is the way of the material world. The Krishna consciousness movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but Krishna conscious movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Very nice translation and purport. So we'll just look at some of the main points. So this chapter is titled Further Talks Between King Rahugana and Jadabharata. So we know the story so far. I'll just go through it quickly. We have all been attending, just for those that have not been. So we're currently in the section of Bhagavatam where we're going through a story actually consisting of 3 lifetimes of this great soul. So it was Maharaj Bharat, who was the son of none other than Lord Rishabhadev himself, exalted devotee. He retires timely, but he gets attached to a baby deer, and leaves his body, gives up his body thinking about the deer. So he gets the body of a deer in his next life. And when he gives up the body of the deer, he then gets the body of Jadabharata. So we are currently in this 3rd lifetime of this great soul, Jadabharata. And Jadabharata, as we know, there's a chance encounter between King Rahugana, the king of a nation, and he meets Jadabharata, and this chance encounter leads to great exchange of wisdom, or great knowledge being transferred by Jadabharata to King Rahugana. So this is where we are in the story, and we know that King Rahugana realizes that this Jadabharata is no ordinary palanquin carrier, that he is an exalted soul. As you know, until then, Jadabharata had kept quiet and he had behaved like a mad and dull person. So nobody was able to recognize him. But here, King Rahugana has recognized him, and he's taken shelter and has approached him for wisdom. So Jadabharata is in his great compassion because he's also highly saturated in his love and devotion for Krishna. It's the right time for him to speak, and no better person to receive it, no better recipient than Maharaj Rahugana. So King Rahugana being ready to receive this knowledge, this great exchange takes place. And Jadabharata, as we know, he's highly realized, not only because, he's a great devotee, but he's been through 2 deaths and 2 lifetimes before that he can fully remember. So being conscious of that, whatever he's speaking is fully realized knowledge. And he is so compassionate that he's willing to explain and re-explain and again explain to King Rahugana. So we are at this point, King Rahugana has approached him for a third time for explanation, and this time Jadabharata is explaining through an allegory. So he's saying the allegory of a merchant that's entering the forest for sense enjoyment and what happens to him. So in today's verse, there are just a few points. It's a very short verse, translation and purport, but there are a few points that we will discuss. So the first, it begins with description of the scorching heat and extreme cold, so extreme weather conditions. So as we know that in the material world, this is it. So this allegory of the forest of enjoyment is nothing different than an explanation or this a description of the material world. So in this material world, we know that there are three main miseries. The first misery is called adhyatmika misery, adhyatmika klesha, where the living entity, his own body and his mind give him trouble, torment him. This is a big misery in this world. We see a lot of people suffering from it. The second type is called adhibhautika klesha or adhibhautika miseries, where other living entities in this material world cause trouble for the living entity. And again, we see it everywhere. And above all that is adhidaivika klesha. The adhidaivika klesha is where it's not in other living entities, it's not his own self, it is nature, or it's the onslaught of prakriti, things completely beyond anyone's control. So these kind of kleshas are being described here, extreme weather conditions, which are troubling the jiva, troubling the living entity who's trying to enjoy in this material world. Now, in this verse, there's also a mention that this living entity, he is trying to counteract these natural conditions. He's trying to counteract the miseries caused by this Adhidevika forces. And what is being said here is that pratikriyam kartum. He is trying to do pratikriya, to counteract, to take some measures to protect himself from this onslaught. But what we see from the learnings of Bhagavad Gita also is that counteraction is not the way, not the right way to deal with the material world's difficulties, because counteraction shows a tendency towards thinking that one is the controller, that one is the proprietor, that we can solve our problems all by ourselves. But this is not the way that Lord Krishna advocates. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we see that Lord Krishna is advocating tolerance. What does he say? He says, Devi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratya. So this material nature is one of my energies, and it is very difficult, extremely difficult to overcome her. The only way you can overcome her is by surrendering to Krishna, her master. And he also says that we have to learn to tolerate the material conditions. In chapter 2, he says that Matra Sparshas tu Kaunteya, 2.14, Matra Sparshas tu Kaunteya, Shitoshna Sukadukada, Agama Paino Nityastam Titikshasva Bharata. So, Titikshasva, you have to learn to tolerate these material conditions. But then the question arises, how can we tolerate these conditions? So when we are going through suffering, it is very difficult to just stay passive and not do anything about it. So it is not being said here that you don't take any action at all. What is being said is that your focus, you might have to take some measures to protect yourself, but above all, our aim should be high. That our focus is on something much more profound, something much higher. In this case, we are trying to develop our love for Krishna. We are trying to see the greatness of Krishna. And when we see Krishna's hand in everything, then we are able to tolerate all these difficulties. So it's only through, we can only overcome the difficulties of this world, or this insignificant small problems and dramas that unfold in this world, if we are taken shelter of the Supreme Lord. Another point that's mentioned in this verse is a cheating propensity. Now, the living entity, he's trying to deal with, counteract all these material conditions, and he's not able to, and he's very distressed. Other than that, he has to deal with living entities and the adhibautika klesha. In this, he is trying to extract something, some happiness from other people, and at the same time, other people are trying to do the same thing with him. And this cheating propensity is very, very common, and this is we say there are four defects of all living entities, the four defects in this material world. One is that we all have limited senses. Our senses are not perfect, and therefore, naturally, the second defect arises, which means that we come under illusion. And because we are illusioned, obviously, then the third defect comes up, which is that we are prone to make mistakes. And because we are prone to make mistakes, even that is, none of these three are, we are helpless. Our senses are imperfect. We are prone to illusion. We make mistakes. All these can be forgiven. But the biggest of all, the last defect, is that then we try to cover up our mistake. We try to cover up or make up for our mistakes by cheating one another. So, and what happens? The result of this cheating propensity, we've seen, is that there's enmity between people, there's enmity between living entities, and this great quality of envy, the greatest fall down, this comes up. Now, this envy, one thing, of course, that I forgot to mention in the previous point is that until now in this section, we see that the living entity, he is being tormented, he's being plundered, he's being looted, he's being taxed heavily. All these things are happening to him. But until now, we see that he is just passively bearing the brunt of it. But from the last verse, from yesterday's verse, today's and tomorrow's, that's verses 10, 11, and 12, Vishaka Mataji in her class, she highlighted how now the living entity is becoming compromised. His character is getting compromised. In yesterday's verse, we saw how he's himself indulging in illicit sex. And today we are seeing how he's being cheated, and as a reaction, he is beginning to cheat others. And in tomorrow's verse, what will be covered is that he's got a stealing propensity as well. So he himself, so one thing we see that if devotees are facing adversity, then they normally will turn to Krishna. They will turn to the Supreme Lord. But when a person is impious, when they are not in this process, then they normally, when they are facing adversity, when they seeing they're being cheated by other people, then they break down. They let their, they succumb and they lose their own integrity. So then they go down, they are heading towards a downward spiral. So sin begets more sin and more sin and more sin, and they don't know when it will end. So, but a pious person, a Krishna conscious person, we would turn towards Krishna in all our difficulties. Coming to this point of envy, so envy, what does envy mean? Envy, in simple terms, means that we are coveting somebody else's possessions, somebody else's position. We are thinking, why is that person having it? I should have it. Why is that person enjoying? I should be enjoying. In fact, this envy is the root cause of why we are here in this material world, because at some point we were envious towards the Supreme Lord. At some point we wondered why Krishna should be the enjoyer, why he should be the proprietor and the controller. Even I want to be. And then Krishna, in his loving compassion, he created this material world for us to enact our fantasies. And so we are here, and of course, if we are here, we must understand, we must probably have some trace of envy. If we have perfected ourselves, then we will no longer be here. So it's very important to understand this envy and see how we can deal with it. So some of the symptoms of envy are that when somebody else is happy, when somebody else has achieved something, then we don't feel happy. On the other hand, if somebody is facing a setback, then we feel happy. So we also, if somebody is being praised, or if somebody is being has achieved something, then we undermine the achievement. Oh, that person only achieved it because the circumstances were favorable, because he had help from so and so. That's why he could do it. So we undermine other people's achievements, other people's happiness, and we also constantly judging other people. And sometimes we try to copy or imitate what they are doing in the hope that we can also achieve what they have achieved. So all these are signs and symptoms of envy. There's a Healthline article on envy which sometimes I refer to, where it mentions there are four causes or four underlying worldviews or four underlying ways of thinking that cause this envy. The first one is that we are coveting, we think that somebody else possesses something, that they have something and I want that something. So we believe that somebody possesses something that we want. Now, if you look at um, our practices in Krishna consciousness, we know our theology states that we are not the possessor of anything. Krishna is the supreme controller, the proprietor, and the enjoyer. And that nobody, no living entity possesses anything. We have only been given something by Krishna for a temporary period to see how best we can utilize it. It's only there for maybe our maintenance and for our service. But nobody actually owns anything. So the next cause that they've mentioned, that the worldview that thinks that our self-worth, our self-esteem, or the reason we are worthy of respect in this world is only because of our possessions or our positions. Now, again, in our Krishna conscious worldview, we don't own anything, we don't possess anything. And we know that despite us being so fallen or so unqualified, Krishna loves each and every living being, um, without any motivation, without any conditions. So unconditional love and acceptance we get from Krishna. So there is our worthiness only comes from our connection to Krishna. It doesn't come from any of our possessions or positions in this world. The third worldview is that competition is the way to go. That competition breeds innovation. A competitive world is a world where the best things happen. So this kind of worldview also we see in Krishna consciousness, that that each of us is unique. Krishna has made each of us completely unique. There's no two persons who are similar. So how can we compete with another? Like what's the purpose of that competition? And whatever we have been given by the Lord at the current moment, whatever we seem to possess at the current moment, is only a result of our past activities, of our past karma, and also of our past desires. And it's very, it's very logical to think that, okay, if I want something, if my desires change and if my activities change, then I can also get that. So what's the purpose of competing with another person when each of us has got a unique role to play in this world, and make a unique contribution to in Krishna's leelas? So again, that doesn't is not supported by our theology. And finally, the last point they've said is feelings of scarcity. In this world of duality, if one person wins, then another necessarily loses. But in Krishna's world, in the spiritual world, we know that there is no such scarcity. Krishna is unlimited, and his glories are unlimited, his pastimes are unlimited, the opportunities he gives us are unlimited. He's called Samanjasa. He gives us all the opportunities required for our progress. So there's no scarcity in Krishna's world. In the spiritual kingdom, there is no scarcity. There's no duality. It's not that if one person loses, then only the other person can win. So again, we see in his world, Chintamani Prakara Sadmashu Kalpavriksha. It's Chintamani. His world is Chintamani, and there is Kalpavrikshas everywhere, desire trees everywhere. So if there's no scarcity, then why envy? Again, so basically, our theology does not support envy in any way. And it does not support any reason for competition um, or wanting to overtake another person. We're already wired, therefore, our software is already there for non envy. And we also see from our scriptures, we know in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, Lord Chaitanya's Leelas, how he himself would praise everyone. Um, it is said he would praise as if he had five mouths when he's praising Sanatana Goswami, or when he's giving credit to Rupa Goswami. And even among his associates, like he would praise Vakreshwar Pandit for his dancing, he would praise Vasudev Datta, Mukunda Datta. In all these pastimes, we see that he's just praising and praising. He's showing what an ideal devotee should be. And likewise, among his companions as well, among all these great devotees, there was no competition. If King Prataprudra got Lord Chaitanya's mercy, everyone felt happy. If one of the other devotees was praised, if Sanatana Goswami was praised, then all the other devotees were extremely happy for his good fortune, for his service to the Lord. So basically, in our theology, in our worldview, in our philosophy, and in our practices, there is no place for envy at all. But we might see, practically living in this world, because we are under the modes, because we are having to associate with materially minded people, because of our various circumstances that we are thrown into, that we might find sometimes that we have these feelings coming up. Sometimes it may also be that we're the victims of envy. We might feel victimized. Someone else has been envious of us. But whatever it may be, our reaction, our response should always be non-envious. So, what can we do to lower this chances of envy? One is, of course, many of these points actually have already been covered. I think Nandavraj Prabhu in his class, he had answered us, how we can deal with, or how can we cultivate non-enviousness. So I'll just be covering some of them and maybe a few other points. One is, of course, we cultivate scientific spiritual knowledge through Prabhupada's books. And just look at a couple of verses from these books, which will tell us how we live our lives. So this is Canto 6, chapter 4, verse 13. This is again revisitation of the pastime of the Prachetas, where the Prachetas have come out of their meditation and they're very angry with the trees and they're wanting to burn down the trees. At that time, the moon god is advising them. Says the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated as a supersoul within the course of the hearts of all living entities, whether moving or non moving, including men, birds, animals, trees, and indeed all living entities. Therefore, you should consider every body a residence or temple of the Lord. By such vision, you will satisfy the Lord. You should not angrily kill these living entities in the forms of trees. So, how the Supreme Lord is there in every living entity. And so, why envy anyone? The Lord is there within them and He's empowering them. Similarly, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 61, Ishvaraha sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. So the Lord is sitting in everyone's heart and guiding them. So why, there's no reason to envy anyone. And then obviously, like Arjuna took shelter of Krishna, he is looking up towards Krishna, looking up towards divinity. So we focus our attention on our relationship, on building our relationship with Krishna, never mind whatever is going on around us. And that will help us. Another point we can consider is seeing the faults in material possessions. Why we are envying anybody else? We are envying them for their possessions or their positions. But if we see the faults in these material possessions, then automatically this envy will dissolve. In chapter 5, verse 22 of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Ye hi samsparsha ja bhoga dukha yonaya evate Adi antavant kaunteya na teshu ramate buddha. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. I was listening to another class by His Grace Hari Parshad Prabhu recently. He was giving a class on Vairagya. And I thought what he mentioned about how to develop detachment will also help us in overcoming envy. So, just a few points that I can remember. So, he mentioned he mentioned 8 faults. There are many, many faults, but 8 primary faults that will help us in this process. So, first one, he said that in material possessions or positions, there is a what he called alpayatva. Alpayatva means that whatever it is, once we get it, we realize that it falls short of our expectations. That we were expecting it to give us so much happiness, but it gives us very little happiness. So it is much less than expected. The second thing he said is asthiratva. Asthiratva means that it is unstable or wavering. There is no guarantee that even if you get it and even if it makes you very happy, that it does not last. That there is, not just a chance, but a certainty that things will not last. The situation will not last. The position will not last. The third thing about material possessions is that they are asamayatva. Asamayatva means that you may get them after a lot of effort, you may get them, but by the time you've got them, a lot of time has elapsed, and maybe the joy that you would have found when you were in your 20s is not there when you are in your 50s getting the same thing. So much of these possessions, it takes time. You don't get them easily. And linked to that again is the next point about them is that they are dukkha moolatva. Dukkha moolatva means at their very source they are pain. So you have to undergo a lot of suffering and pain to achieve these material possessions or positions. And is it worth it at the end of the day? You put in so much of hard work, so much, you compromise so much maybe of your character to get it, and then is it worth it is a question. Another point about them is dukkha mishritva. Dukkha mishritva means you think that you have got something which will make you happy, but along with that, you don't realize that there are side effects, that there are side things that accompany it, which are not favorable, which are not what you want. For example, you might want to eat sweets. You enjoy the sweet, but along with that comes fat, comes obesity, comes health problems, comes blood pressure. So it's not, you don't bargain for those other things, but you get them as a package deal anyway. So whether you want to go for that thing at all. And finally, dukho darkatva. Dukho darkatva means that you may get it, but at the end, it ends in misery. As we saw in this verse 5.22, that it always ends in misery. So what's the point of it? What's the point of enjoying it for a temporary period of time? Besides these 6 points, Hari Parshad Prabhu mentioned 2 more points which are especially relevant when you are following the spiritual path. And one of them, the first one is Deha Bhimana Moolatva. Deha Bhimana Moolatva means Deha Abhimana Moolatva. Like at its source, it fosters a sense of false ego. It fosters a sense of I and mine, which is what we are trying to overcome. We're trying to overcome this false ego, but when you are going after, material things, material possessions, coveting somebody else's possessions, you're actually fostering this false ego even more. So whether we want to go down that path at all. And the final one is Brahmananda Anubhava Virudhatva. That Brahmananda Bhava Virudhatva means it is against going for Brahmananda. So in simple terms, if as an economist, for example, you would say the opportunity cost. The opportunity cost of going after something in this material world is that you're losing out on spending that same time and effort on going after spiritual pursuits, which might give you more lasting, which will give you more lasting happiness, everlasting happiness. So whether it's worth it to follow the path of envy. Leads us to the next point of gratitude. So we saw how contentment is the way to go. So when you're content with what you have, then na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, as Lord Chaitanya said, we don't want anything. We are happy with what we've been given. Why? Because we have been given this as a mercy of Krishna. We've been given this as a result of our past deeds. We've been given this because this is what we desired. And now that we have it, um, we have to be content. The great philosopher Socrates says that he who is not contented with what he has will not be contented with what he wants to have. So it's just logical that if you're not happy with what you have, then you seek after more things. You're not going to be happy with that either. So you have to be content with what you have. But how do you be content? Be grateful. Just change it. Instead of saying, instead of wanting more and more things, be grateful for what has been given to you. Again, always feel that you're not deserving. Always feel that been given more than what you deserve. And as a side point, it would be really, when we are solely dependent on Krishna. I like these two verses very much from the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, what does it say? Vihaya kaman yah sarvan pumams charati nishprihaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sa shantim adhigachati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. So, you don't desire anything more, and we are dependent solely on Krishna. Yeah. Yasman, chapter 12, verse 15 and 16. Yasman nod vijate loko, loka nod vijate chayah, harsha marsha bhayodvegair, mukto yah sacha me priyah. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. And the next verse also. Anapeksha shuchir daksha, udasino gatavyataha, Sarvarambha Parityagi, Yo Mad Bhakta Same Priyaha. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result is very dear to me. So, not striving for some result. This is a takeaway for us that, Krishna is, you're very dear to Krishna when we're not striving to attain something maybe that somebody else has. And we are solely dependent on Krishna and His mercy at all times. Then, of course, we can be real. We appreciate others. We genuinely appreciate others from the bottom of our heart. We see, that they have achieved something, or they are able to do things, or they are able to get success because of uh, because of their past activities, because of their desires, which took them that way, because of the Lord's mercy, for the Lord's empowerment of them. That's why they are able to achieve it. And so they are special to the Lord and they're dear to the Lord, they're pleasing the Lord, and therefore we should be also happy. We are also happy for them. And likewise, while we are praising them, we also appreciate ourselves because we've been given some unique gifts which no one else has, and we've got a unique contribution to make. And so, therefore, why not go ahead and be ourselves and make the best contribution we can? So in this, there is also another aspect. See, we talk about not being competitive, but then not being competitive in and of itself, I mean, in the material world, we see innovations are driven by competition. Products become better because of competition. The services we get become better because there is competition. So how can we say that competition is bad, right? The question will come. But then and then but the real thing is that it is not so much competing with others as much as competing with ourselves. So it doesn't mean that we stop improving ourselves. We are improving ourselves, but we are comparing ourselves not to somebody else, but we're comparing ourselves to our past self. So each day, are we becoming better? Am I becoming a better person than what I was last week, what I was last month, what I was last year? That's real competition. That's real comparison. And also in the spiritual world, we see that there is competition. We see in the 10th canto, the cowherd boys, they're saying, Aham Purvam, Aham Purvam. I am first, I am first. I will run and catch Krishna first. So that kind of competition is there, but that is not an envious competition. They're equally happy for somebody else to also catch him. and the Supreme Lord reciprocates with each of them for their love and for their eagerness to catch him. So that is not the kind of competition we're talking about here. And as I said, the real competition we have is with ourselves. And another way we can deal with this envy is by being generous, that we focus not so much on getting, not so much on seeking, not so much on what somebody else has, but what we can give. Focus on ourselves, on our actions, on being generous and giving rather than taking. So in this, I was listening to Romapad Maharaj class, and he gave an example of a Mataji who was speaking at a memorial function for His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And she was saying that Maharaj used to always say, I'm a mama's boy. I'm a mama's boy. And nobody understood what he meant by that until I think this Mataji or somebody asked him, what do you mean, Maharaj, by saying you're mama's boy? So he explained that, when they were growing up, they lived in a ghetto. They lived very, very impoverished background, very impoverished childhood. And they lived in a ghetto, and Maharaj owned only two shirts. And one day, Maharaj brought one of his friends home, and his mother saw that that child was even more impoverished, was in even more dire straits than them. So she told Maharaj to give one of his shirts to this other boy. And just so he used to say, magnanimous, just be magnanimous, just give more of yourself and focus more on your giving rather than what you want, because that wanting will make it's a downward spiral. You keep wanting and wanting, but when you give and give, and that's what will please Krishna and will help us progress. And then we come to the final point in this purport. Prabhupada has repeated twice, not once but twice in this short purport. He says that our Krishna conscious society should be an exemplary community. We should be an exemplary non-envious community, where basically we are it's like showcasing to the world what the spiritual world will be like. And it might seem like a very, very tall order, but in fact, all of us, if we are just looking after ourselves, if we are focusing on our reactions, no matter what's happening around us, if we always react and respond in a favorable way by proactively curbing envy and proactively becoming more loving in the process, then by default our community will also grow to be a non-envious exemplary community. So that's all I had to say. But just to summarize, in today's verse, let's read the translation again, is that sometimes a living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity among themselves. So Jadabharta is trying to make King Rahugana detached from this material world and the miseries of this material world. And likewise, in this verse, we saw how the living entity is busy counteracting, whereas he should be actually tolerating and instead of becoming unhappy, instead of becoming envious and creating enmity between each other, the living entity would be better off focusing on the Supreme Lord, on seeing the faults in material possessions, being grateful, being dependent on Krishna, and appreciating everyone. So with that, I'd like to end today's class. If anyone has any comments or would like to add to this, please feel free. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much for unpacking this wonderful verse. It's such a short purport, but you really explained it so much in detail. I really like the point we mentioned that we should not compete with others. We should compete with ourselves. How much improving or transformation we have in ourselves. That is a very great point. Otherwise, if you start comparing with others, and then this negative quality of enviousness will come. Such a wonderful point. And you also mentioned about there's also competition in the spiritual world. The gopis are competing, but they're competing who can serve Krishna better. So if you have this mood of serving the deities and the Vaishnavas, how we can serve them better than others, I think this quality of envy will just diminish. Thank you so much for making this very important points. Really like the class. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much. Nicely explaining the content of this verse, although very short purport, but you have very nicely explained it. And now coming to a few things you have told very nicely about the first thing you have told about three types of sufferings in this material, Adhyatmik, Adi Bhautik, and Adi Daivi. And you have very nicely told, you have quoted verse 214 and 714 of the Bhagavad Gita, and where the underlying point is that we should try to tolerate it, and instead of trying to counteract it, because the counteraction actually comes from the mind, from the concept of the mind that we are the I can control it. It comes a sort of authority, but unfortunately, this is the wrong method, as it's told in our Vedas. In our Vedic scripture, it is told that we should accept what the Lord has done it, because the whole world is created for His enjoyment and not for ours. So we should rather cooperate with the natural laws, and it is not possible really in the long run. Prabhupada has tried to speak in various ways, in different ways, and giving various examples that no one can escape the law of material nature. So it is better we accept it and try to act in the way the Lord has directed us, or it is given in our religion. And the best way is that by accepting the Ishavasya principle, that everything belongs to the Lord. Of course, you have mentioned it. Ishavasya principle, that what the Lord has given me, this is my, by result of my past activities, this is my due. I should accept it, and not try to encroach others' share, what the Lord has given to others because of their karma fall or the results of their own past activities. And in this way, you have also given the example of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was an embodiment of how magnanimity. And I remember one incident where Pradyumna Mishra went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to listen about Krishna. And he told him that I have no knowledge about Krishna. What Ramananda Rai tells me, I hear from him. So he is trying to glorify his own disciple.
Yeah.
And you see, the Lord, he is telling, I don't know anything. So what does it say? It says that in a spiritual world, there is no envy.
Yes.
But in this, it is a product of this material world where the whole thing is based on the whole motivation is aham and mameti.
Yes.
I am doing, and what I don't have, the other should not have.
Yeah.
That is in fact, a perverted reflection of the spiritual world where everything is perfect.
Yes.
And the last one, I will say that you have told about what is just one? Oh, the world is really is a place of misery. Should accept it, as the Lord has told in different Padam Jad Vibodam also there every step. So, and the best result, best medicine for that is to take shelter of the Lord and depend on His mercy, and He will protect. He has protected His devotees in the past. He will protect His devotees now, and He will protect His devotees in the future. So we should, if we accept that, and that is the way to counteract envy, and by this way we can create a society that is free from envy. Although it is not possible in this material world, but we can try to do that. So there is a reflection of the spiritual world in this material world, and Prabhupada has created ISKCON for this reason. And hopefully, as a member of the society of that one, it is our duty to act in such a way that we do not create an envy for others, at least for any other devotees. And in this way, we can make our life successful and the society as well, a purposeful for which Prabhupada has created this society. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Nicely summarized. Very nice. Thank you. So if there's no other comments, then should we end the class?
Oh, I have one. I'll put my hand up. Sorry.
Oh, yes, sorry. I couldn't see that. Sorry. Please carry on, Prabhu.
So thank you so much for the class. I got so much out of it. I'm still like super new to these classes, so I get lots of out of it. But I have one question. So you said
Yes.
that competition isn't bad. It's just our intentions behind it, and that I should compare myself to how I used to be instead of to others.
Yes.
Is that so? I'm trying to improve myself every day, or
Yes. Yes, Prabhu. That's what my understanding is, that we it's not that, because in the material world we see that competition is very encouraged, but that kind of competition, if in spiritual circles, if we try to compete with somebody else, it's only going to make us jealous or envious, or lead to some negative qualities. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we are perfect, because we are here, and just like Krishna is unlimited and his opportunities he gives us are unlimited, similarly our potential is also unlimited. So we have unlimited potential to become better and better and better. There's no end to how much better we can become. But then our competition is not others, our competition is ourselves, our own past selves. If I did some service yesterday, how can I do it better today? How can I do better than what I did last year? How can I serve more? How can I help others serve more? So that kind of competition with our own selves is healthy, and it will lead to progress, and to progress on the spiritual path, make us closer to Krishna. That was my understanding. If would anyone else like to add? Explain that, please. Did that answer the question, Prabhu?
that was perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
It appears there's no other person to make any comments, so the class may be concluded. Thank you once again for a very nice class.
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय।
His Grace Tulasi Sevya Mataji ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Gaur Premanande Hare Hare.
Hare.
All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Thank you. Krishna.
Yeah.